What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about weapon mounted laser rangefinders. Specifically, we're going to be doing a review on the Maztech X4-LRF. We've got the 2K and the 15K models, and we're just gonna go over them. I want to talk about my initial impressions with them. I don't have a ton of time on them yet, but I think they are great units. A lot of value for the money, both in the 2K and the 15K. We'll go over just the basic features, zeroing. We're going to do some ranging tests throughout in the Utah desert so we can range a lot farther than we can shoot. We're going to try some reflective, non-reflective targets. We're going to test the speed. Basically everything that you would want to be, tested in a nice weapon-mounted laser rangefinder. But before we get into the rangefinders, I want to thank the main sponsors of the channel, mainly Gallinson's Guns. Those guys are awesome. They are the only dealer in Utah for Accuracy International, my favorite rifles. But they also have tons and tons of ammo, massive gun selection, massive reloading section. So basically anything you need, high end, low end, in between, for long range, literally everything in the gun world, Gallinson's Guns has it. Huge thanks to them. They are the longest sponsor of the channel. Tim over there is a good friend of mine and a very good dude. We also have another sponsor of the channel that I'm happy to announce. Bone Frog Ammunition is now the main ammo sponsor of the channel. You guys follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I've been shooting Bone Frog for quite a long time. I was a customer of theirs before they ever started sending me ammo. They make, in my opinion, some of the best match grade 5.56 ammo out there, the 77 grain, either OTM, Sierras, or TMKs. They all shoot fantastic, incredible SDs, very, very high quality. I've shot thousands of their rounds and it is awesome. So huge thanks to them for providing a lot of the ammo that we will be shooting now and in the future videos. But yeah, let's jump into the laser rangefinders. And before we start talking specifically about the Maztech, I want to do kind of a little history on weapon mounted laser rangefinders. So you guys that aren't stricken with the TISM, you can skip ahead, 5 minutes and get to where we start doing the review of the video. But I think going over the history of laser rangefinders and weapon mounted laser rangefinders is kind of important to know why we got these, why the military wanted them, and why they are, a good tool for civilians to have. So let's do a little history real quick. So in the late 80s and early 90s, there was the ANGVS 5 and 5S, and those were just really big, bulky lasers that, it was just a laser rangefinder. They weren't weapon mounted, but they were kind of the, the great grandfathers of the units that we have today. After that, the late 90s, early 2000s, you got the early Vectronics Vectors, those really big ones. And some of those they did mount to weapons with really crude mounting systems. But the lasers started to get a little more refined. You started to be able to laser a lot farther. So in the early 2000s, you started to get the first truly weapon-mounted laser rangefinders with the AN-PEC 1, SOFLAM, and the Storm series. So those were primarily laser designators for, for beam riding munitions and, marking positions and stuff like that. Some had laser rangefinder integration. Some also had rail mounts, but they were still a little too they were still a little too bulky for legitimate, efficient sniper integration. After that, you had some OSTI prototypes that blended ballistic capabilities, laser rangefinding, and thermal optics, and those were prototype made for JSOC. So after that, in the 2010 to 2012, you started to get the Wilcox Raptor, and these were the early models. They were had pretty limited ranging capability, mainly for the military. Some civilians got them. They were heavily vetted civilians, and they got those models, but still not quite to the full laser rangefinding and ballistic capability to where the your solver is taking information from the laser and giving you your firing solution. After that, we got the Silencer Co. Radius, which was also just a laser rangefinder that was mounted to the gun. That was a fully civilian model, and it kind of struggled with retaining zero and just overall durability issues, but it was a stepping stone for a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder. So they had quite a few different models. They had some that was just a rangefinder and laser designator. They have this one with that's the Raptor S that is ballistic capable. It runs applied ballistics solving software. And that was the first one that was really widely used. It's a great unit. It still is. This is still a fairly new unit. Was made around 2022, but still slightly on the bulky side. And then after that, you started to get a civilian model. Well, I guess going back to this, when it became available to the civilian market, it was still extremely expensive, around $8,000 to $10,000. So not ideal for the civilian market. So there's a number of reasons as to why the military, specifically the sniper community, would want a unit like this or this capability. There's quite a few reasons. The first one being just speed to the first shot. With this system, with the newer systems, even with the Raptor is still kind of considered slow, but it was way faster than what they had back then. So just being able to stay on the gun in your firing position, get an accurate range and a very accurate firing solution and make that shot was a massive force multiplier for snipers and even just normal riflemen that were carrying like a DMR or some kind of accurized rifle, being able to get an accurate range and just make that shot without breaking position. And that also was another massive plus, being able to stay on the rifle in a hide or in a position, not having to come up, use a separate unit, laze, and then go elsewhere for your firing solution. Just being able to stay in position, stay in your hide, not move. When you're in a hide, you want to minimize as much movement as possible. So having all of your ballistic capabilities and lasing capabilities on your gun, relatively compact. Even if you're shooting through a loophole, if your loophole's big enough, you can still use this to get an accurate range. You obviously have to use the loophole formula after that, but just being able to get an accurate distance and then going off of other RET techniques is a massive capability. Another big plus to having a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder is just maximizing individual shooter capability. Before, usually your spotter was running the laser rangefinder, giving firing solutions, and now you can minimize that to just a one-man job on a much smaller, more compact unit. So there's a lot of reasons. I probably haven't covered them all, but those are just a few as to why the military wanted such a unit and such a capability. And I think those easily carry over to us as civilians, whether we're shooting recreationally or hunting, coyote hunting. I think these are a massive advantage. With predator hunting is something I really enjoy doing. Coyotes, even though other predators should be hunted. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of just that capability. When I'm on a coyote set and I have this on a tripod with me, I can just increase speed. If there's multiple coyotes or just a single one, when I bark at him, make him stop, laze him, and smoke him. It's super fast instead of going to Kestrel or hard dope. Even though I think you should absolutely still have those, you should never give up your hard dope because these have batteries, they're electronic, and can always fail, although they have been proven to be extremely durable and reliable at the same time. So yeah, big fan of these units. Even as a prepared civilian, I think having this capability on a rifle like this is a must. I don't want to be a doomer, but Second Amendment, I think a precision rifle, a single precision round, is going to be the most influential thing on the battlefield should civilians get involved in any kind of conflict on our home turf. I think every civilian should be able to, place a round exactly where they want it to go. And this is going to give you a very big upgrade in speed and capability. So now that we've kind of gone over the history, the why, let's start talking about the actual unit. So we're going to go prone out, I'm going to talk about zeroing and, you know, uploading a profile to the X4-LRF. All right, so now I'm going to go over the zeroing process and talk about it a little bit. So the Maztech comes with this reflective target, and it has kind of little designators as to where you should put your crosshairs and where you want the visible laser to hit. Each of these units has a visible laser that is slaved to the actual range finding laser so that you can zero it to your reticle. And why do these need to be zeroed? You know, they're on top of your scope, they're parallel. So after you've zeroed your scope to your rifle, you've got a good solid zero, you need this to be able to look where you are aiming so you can get an accurate range off of, you know, the target you are looking at. So what you're going to do is after you've zeroed your rifle, you want this laser to be perfectly parallel on top of your crosshairs, basically out to infinity. Because if you were to zero the laser to the center of your crosshairs, because they are, you know, because the lasers over each other, at that intersecting point, they would cross and get an accurate range at 100 yards every time, wherever you zeroed, and then that laser would continue going downward, and you would never get an accurate range. So what we're doing, and what they've done here, is you have your aiming point, and most diving boards will be a certain distance over your scope, and this is something that you will need to confirm and not just go off of this 100%. You want that laser to be hitting the center of this circle. So if this diving board is the same height as this measurement, that laser will always be parallel with your crosshairs unless you've dialed your scope for a shot. So since that laser is parallel with your crosshairs, you know, that's a relatively small distance, probably smaller than most of the targets you'll be shooting at. You will be able to essentially put your crosshairs on the center of whatever you're shooting at. If it's an animal, a target, or a two-legged animal, you'll be able to put your crosshairs on it, and that laser will hit at that designated offset mark where you've zeroed it to, and you will get an accurate range on whatever target you're shooting at. And some people will say that, oh, you can just zero it to, you know, whatever that is at 100 yards on, like maybe 3 or 4 mils high, or not 4 mils, but whatever mils high at that. But that's not quite accurate, because the mils in your scope, that is an angular measurement. So that measurement grows as you go farther. And this to here, your center crosshair to wherever you are making that parallel zero, is parallel, and that remains the same out to infinity. So that's why we want to make a true parallel zero rather than just zero it to a mil mark in our scope, because that may look good at 100, but as that goes out, you're going to grow that distance. You know, a mil at 100 yards is only about 3 inches, but a mil at 1,000 yards is quite a bit bigger, and, you know, probably a lot bigger than the target you're going to be shooting at. So that's why we don't want to slave the laser to a mil mark in your reticle. Anyway, so now we're going to show that zeroing process. I'm going to put my scope cam on, and you'll be able to see that visible laser and see it move to the correct spot on our zeroing target. So let's take this out real quick. Okay, I've got my trigger cam, and I'm going to start by turn this on. So you'll turn the laser to visible, and then you'll double tap the left. I think, let me check. Oh, that's why, I'm just stupid. You need to take the cover off. So you'll double tap that left button, and now, I don't know if you can see that, your visible laser is on. And then you'll need to get a flathead out and use these left and right zero knobs. So I'm going to hit record on here, and I'm going to see where that laser is. Sometimes you kind of have to find it. Okay, see? It is down about 6 mils low. in my screen. I think you guys can see that on the camera. So I'm going to do, get off bug. I'm going to go on the top and move that. Which way is up? Make sure you're moving it the right way. Okay, so clockwise is up. Move it up a little bit. Okay, see now we're about 5 mils. So I'm gonna just set that in there. See that moving up? Okay. Now that that's about ballpark where I want it, I'm gonna aim. Oh, that's just about perfect. I'm gonna go down a click. See where that puts me. Okay, that was too much. I'm gonna go back up. Up was about perfect. So yeah, that looks dead nuts. Let me see if you guys can see that in the camera. Yep. So that is awesome. So yeah, that's zeroed essentially. So now I'm just gonna turn my visible laser off, and then you'll switch it to range. And I've got my thing right here. So 96 yards. So just, that's about exactly where I put it. It wasn't ideal for perfectly 100 yards, but that doesn't really matter. It's parallel. So, yep, 100 yards. I guess I wonder if yeah, that reflective thing throws it off a little bit. All right, yeah, 100 yards, and it's zeroed perfectly. So now my 2K, so full disclosure, I should have said this at the beginning of the video. The 2K is mine, I bought that. The 15K, Maztech reached out and asked if I wanted to try the 15K as well to do a comparison. So I said absolutely, and I will most likely be buying a 15K as well. The price difference is pretty substantial. The 2K is about $2,300 after tax, and the 5K or the 15K is about $5,300 after tax. So that's kind of the point of this video. We're doing a review, and I also want to cover I better stop recording on here. Is the 2K or the 15K, you know, what's worth it for you essentially? So that's kind of what we're going to cover. So now that both of these are zeroed, I'm going to confirm zero with the 2K that's on the AXSR. Just make sure the laser is still zeroed. One of the things that I purposely did on the way here, I did not put that in a rifle case. I let the rifles sit in my front seat, bounce around on the dirt road, just because I want to see what the zero retention is like. So I'm going to confirm that zero real quick. And just see if it maintained zero. I think I'm going to say it did. This is one of the more robust units available, so I'm going to go to visible. There we go. Got our laser on. Now let's see. Whoops. And it's perfect. Has not moved at all. That's awesome. So that, I was not nice to it. We're out in the Utah desert. It's very bumpy. That is really cool. I'm gonna go ahead and confirm my zero real quick. One of the things that I really like about the Maztech over the other units is that the remote has haptic feedback. And what that means is every time I hit the button, it will do a little, like a vibration to let me know that it has a solution or that it got a good reading. So that's super cool. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna confirm zero real quick. Just send one shot into my target, make sure my zero is good on this. Yep. Gosh dang, this rifle's nice. Okay. Now that both of these units are zeroed, I'm going to turn them off. And we will go set up some tests. All right, so I've got my target up on the hill. It's skylined. I won't be shooting at it, so don't worry. But I just want to show you guys. My goal with this test is to just see how accurately and how quickly I can range on a target like this. A very small target, skylined, so there's nothing in the background that I can get a read off of. And it's also kind of shaky, so the speed of the LRF will come into play as well. So I'm gonna see if I can get a read on it. Huh. So it's saying the range is below minimum for a ballistic solution. So it's getting a bad read. Oh, never mind. I'm retarded. Jeez, Maztech. Anyway. Okay. Pretend that didn't happen. Okay, so I got 755 yards. Okay, so I seem to be getting a good reading off of the mountain and the bush, but it doesn't want to pick up the actual target. So that's interesting. So I'm going on a much smaller bush, just to show that my zero is accurate on the LRF, but it doesn't like the white target, the coyote target. That's interesting. So I'm getting reads off of the bush and everything, but it doesn't like that target, which in theory that should be a good, that should get a really good reading off of it because it's very reflective, but it doesn't like it. But this is the 2K, so that could mean a number of things. It's a less powerful laser, less powerful sensor. So let's get the 15K up here and see how it does. All right, so we got the 15K up here, and I've got a C-130 right behind our target. Okay, let's see if it likes that target. Okay. Yeah, that's 10 times faster. Oh, I think I put it on continuous. So I'm going to put it right on the target. Yeah, that is crazy fast. So much faster. Wow, yeah. It's basically instant, and it's picking up now. It's doing that. If you double tap it, it'll do like a continuous range. But yeah, it's getting 760 every time. Not struggling at all. That's impressive. Well, that kind of puts that into perspective as to why this one costs, you know, almost $3,000, basically $3,000 more. But let's talk about that for a second. All right, so I forgot to do a video down there to show the target, but this is just how I set it up. It's about a half-size coyote, skylined. We were down right about there, 760 yards. Yeah, so it's a little curious as to why the Maztech wasn't picking it up. I was hitting this bush, you know, like aiming at the top portion right there, and then hitting other skylined bushes, and I was getting readings off those, but not a white, you know, what should be a very reflective, easy target for a laser rangefinder. So that's a little unfortunate, but I will talk to Maztech to see why something like that would happen. Okay, so now that we are running the 15K, you got to see the difference in not only speed. When I was getting a reading off of the mountain itself, you could see how much longer the 2K took, but you could see how much quicker the 15K was, and that's due to a number of reasons. So one, the 15K has a more powerful laser. Two, the 15K has a more powerful processor as well, because it's having to send the laser out, get the reading back, and then, you know, basically process that information and give you a firing solution. And because the 15K costs more, you know, they are able to put a lot more power into this unit, and that shows in a number of different ways. You're picking up a harder to reach target. That target is really, you know, there's not a lot of reflectivity. Well, there should be. So that's, I'll talk to Maztech as to, you know, why it wouldn't be able to pick up a relatively easy target. It's a coyote target about that big, skylined, reflective. So in theory, it should, any rangefinder should be able to pick that up pretty easily. But it was, then that's a little disappointing from the 2K, if I'm being 100% honest. But, you know, now I want to see, like, really push the limits of the 15K and just see how far we can get a reading off of it. So I'm gonna try. In the background there's a big telephone pole. Let's see if it'll, okay, yeah, that was easy. 1,400 yards. Is there anything farther? There's one way over here. Wow, 1,700 yards. It's instant. It's instant. Like, and up until now, I bought the 2K because I was, you know, conflicted as to, you know, is that $3,000 going to be worth it? And I'm starting to think it is for the 15K. And I obviously want to test it some more. Maybe we'll flip it around and send it on some really far mountains. $2,900 yards instantly. I don't know how much farther I can see. $2,700 yards, just like that. I wonder, this will be the real test. If it can get a read across Utah Lake, that would be gnarly. Yeah, that's not happening. That's way farther than it's capable of. But no, that's, yeah, just basically just the speed alone. And now, even if the 2K was getting a good reading on that target, why would speed be a factor? So on a setup like this, I'm running a weapon mounted laser rangefinder because I want to be fast. And when I'm in a unsteady or uncertain position, like just, you know, just going off a barricade standing, I'm still going to have a bit of a wobble zone. And on a small target like that, a slow laser could get the wrong reading. Like if there is a background to that target that's, you know, 50 to 100 yards farther back, I could laze that target, and because my wobble zone's a little bit big, or I've been breathing heavy like I'm at a sniper match, I might get a reading 100 yards back. And just because I drifted off that target while it was trying to get a reading because it's slower, and that would give me an incorrect, you know, yardage and an incorrect solution. So speed is very important in a unit like this, because I want to know that as soon as I tap that fire button, I'm getting a reading off what I was aiming at. I don't want to have to wait and, you know, have to laze it a few more times to be certain that I hit the target. So speed is a big factor in a unit like this, and that's why I think, you know, I'm learning now why the 15K is more expensive, and I'm probably going to end up getting a 15K. This is a loaner. This isn't free. They're not giving me this one. So you know, I'm thinking I'm probably going to buy a 15K. All right, so now that we did that test, that was just kind of a test one to really kind of test the zero that I did. Another way that you can really confirm your zero, take that reflective target and just push it back to 700-800 yards, and with that reflectivity you should be able to see your visible laser on it. If it's still in that same position, your zero is probably true, because as you know, angles are, you know, they grow exponentially away from each other at distance. So if your zero is off, you'll be able to really tell at distance. But now, that aside, I want to push the limits of the 2K now, just on, you know, shrubs and rocks and stuff, and just see the readings that I'm getting, if I can get a reading. I've pushed it to 2,200 yards before, and it wasn't really an issue, but I want to see how far I can go now. So I'm going to go back over to those rocks that I did the 15K on. So it's struggling on those. Try this closer one. Okay, 1,600 yards, basically a mile. That's a good sign. Let's go a little bit farther back on those rocks. Nope. Not liking that. Let's try just a bush over here. 1,800 yards. So that's not bad. Maybe let's try the bushes up here. So 1,092. $12.09. Let's try a small bush at the very top. 1282, that's good. $12.66. So that's got me a little curious now as to why, you know, it can pick up a obviously not reflective bush at 1,200 yards, but it can't pick up a very reflective, you know, a white target that's pretty big at only 700 yards. So if any of you guys know, you know, the why behind that, if you've got some more laser experience than I do, drop it in the comments, and I'll ask Maztech as well. That's just weird. Like, you know, that could be a detrimental thing at a match if you can only afford the 2K. So, but all in all, I'm still very happy with the 2K for the price, for being around $2,000. It's not bad. Another reason why this is a little bit more expensive than like the Tango 4000 is because this has an IR aiming laser as well, or an IR designator. So that's also another cool added capability on these. It also has onboard environmentals. The Tango doesn't. And, you know, before I go dissing on other units, I'm going to be doing full reviews on as many laser rangefinders as I can that are weapon mounted. I've got a Tango sitting right there. I've got a Raptor S. I'll have a Mars. I have the new SIG on the way as well, the SIG Warp. So this will be kind of a series of reviews and an ultimate overall comparison of them all in the future. So far, I'm a big fan of the 2K. I will definitely be buying the 15K just on speed and power alone. An airplane flying over. Just because I think that will be a very good match, sniper match unit. And that one I will do a direct comparison with the Envision Mars because I think it has a lot of capability for half the price of a Mars. So yeah. Overall, still pretty happy with the 2K. Let's send a round on a rock and see how well my dope's tracking. Got a bush. 8.4. Got a crosswind. Yeah, that's tracking. That's cool. See, that's why it's cool to be able to have this kind of capability. Laze it, get your solution, either dial or hold, and just go for it. And it's when your data is good. All right, guys. So, in conclusion to the Maztech X4-LRF video, I had an outro filmed, but as you guys, if you've stuck around to this point, I had some questions about the 2K. And I said I would talk to Maztech, and the guys over at Maztech, Mike specifically, thank you very much, Mike. He responded to my email very quickly. He watched the unlisted edited video, and he just said to call him, which I thought was awesome. And on a Saturday, we had about a 30-minute long conversation, and he just ran me through the background of Maztech, the whys behind a 2K and the 15K, the differences, technical differences, the intended use differences between each unit, and just gave me a ton of super good information. So he gave me permission to kind of share the information that he gave me, mainly talking about the differences between the 2K and the 15K LRFs. So to start off, the main issue that we had when we were testing the 2K was the target up at about 700 something yards, and it was skylined, very small target. And he basically told me that the reason why the 2K wasn't getting a reading off of that target was because of the beam divergence and the type of laser it is. So basically the 2K is more of a terrain laser. It uses a less powerful laser that also pulses many thousand times a second to get a reading off of it. It'll get very accurate and pretty quick readings off of a terrain. So basically what he told me to do on a target of that size, that when it's not skyline, just aim for the base or the terrain. If I'm trying to get a coyote at that distance, depending on what's behind it or what's in front of it, I should aim the laser at its feet, because it's getting to get a more accurate and reliable reading off of the terrain because of the larger beam divergence. And another factor that comes into play is, the price. It's really hard to fit a super powerful laser into a unit for $2,000, which I already think the 2K is a fantastic value for your money, coming in around $2,300 after taxes, because it has applied ballistics for one, which a lot of them beforehand didn't have applied. The Vortex Impact 4000 ran geoballistics, and it was still $2,000 when it came out. So the fact that this is running applied ballistics is awesome. Onboard environmentals, which is a big plus. Some units don't run that. But another huge plus that the Maztech, both the 2K and the 15K have, is an IR laser in it. So aside from, yes, you can obviously, certain lasers you can pick up under night vision just from the actual ranging laser, this has a passive aiming laser that stays on. You're not just getting a quick, zap to kind of, I could see my laser for a second if you're running under nods or a clip-on. So this has a legit active aiming laser in it, so that's super cool. But yeah, that's kind of a tangent. Also, because of, you're getting a unit that's also made in the USA 100%. A lot of people don't know this, but Maztech makes their own lasers as well, which is kind of unheard of for the US civilian market. I almost guarantee you every single one of the lasers that you are using, LRFs, their laser is not made in the US. They come from Germany, they come from China. They're just outsourcing the laser, putting it into their unit, and running whatever software, and your glass probably isn't made in the US either. So this being 100% US made is awesome. And keeping it under $5,000, being at $2,300 for a US made laser that's running applied ballistics is awesome. So yeah, that was a big tangent. This is gonna be a lot of talking, so you guys that really like information and really want to understand the differences in these rangefinders, thank you for sticking around. But yeah, so that was the main reason why it wasn't getting a read on that specific target, was beam divergence. Yeah, basically it came down to beam divergence for the reason why it wasn't picking that up. So now let's jump over to why the 15K was picking it up so quickly and so accurately. It's because it is running a whole different kind of laser. It's not running a pulse laser, it is running a single, more powerful, it emits one beam, and it's much more powerful and much more focused. It has a much tighter beam divergence, down to about 0.5 mil, and that is why it was able to pick up that target easily. Compare another laser that's not available to the civilian market, which is, it's cool that the 15K, which is commercially available to civilians, it's running the same type of laser as the L3 Storm. If you guys are familiar with that laser rangefinder, it's extremely powerful. You can range like 9,000 yards like that. But it's the same type of laser. It emits one strong pulse, and it's getting a super fast reading from that pulse. And I can't remember the technical name that he gave me from that the laser is, but he said that comparatively that's the same type of laser. It's also on a non-observable wavelength. So when you do fire the 15K laser, it won't be, if you're looking for someone and they have, this laser or a normal LRF under night vision and they try to beam you, you'll pick up that laser under night vision, but you will not pick up the 15K's laser. So that's another super cool fact about the 15K. So like back to what I was saying about US made, really the only other US company that is building their own lasers is L3, and L3 is the night vision company. They make the L3 Storm. They make a ton of lasers, so they are really the only other company that is making US aiming and ranging lasers. So that's really cool. It's a US defense company through and through. So a couple other reasons why the 15K and the 2K are a little more expensive than the other offerings currently on the market is obviously, one, made in the USA. So it's all mil-rated hardware. So it's made, there's a misconception when it comes to military grade equipment. One of them is, military grade like durability. That's a good one. That's kind of something that we like to look for. But a lot of people will, stamp their product with military grade when a lot of the people that were in the military know that military grade is kind of a poor standard. Basically means they were the lowest bidder. So, but yeah, military grade durability and mil-rated components. So that's a plus. That's something you can actually be excited for. So because of that mil rating, it can be operable down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And it is full auto rated on a SCAR 17, which is known to eat optics and lasers. So it is extremely durable, probably one of the most durable units available right now. So a couple points that I missed, and since I want to get this video out to you quickly, I'm not able to go back out in the range and demonstrate and do. But a few things that they like to do is after you've zeroed it and everything, they want you to shoot it. Because that will kind of, when you shoot a chassis rifle or you shoot a scope, everything, it settles, and if it's not torqued, you'll know. but they recommend that you shoot it a few times. They recommend that you shoot it a few times and it kind of, settles in, gets locked in. Some other things, cool things. So this has shake to wake. So you could technically leave it on, and they said it will last years. So it's not one of those units that it's when it goes to sleep, it's not all the way asleep. Like it will save battery, but ultimately, if you leave it for a week, you'll come back and it's dead. This unit will legit sleep and shake to wake, and that will, that's cool. At a match, other things, you don't have to get up there and be like, oh crap, it's not on, wait for it to boot up. Some LRFs take a little bit and they show you a little screen. Another thing, that when this does go to sleep and you pull up on a target and you hit the fire button, it turns it on and fires the laser. You don't have to turn it on and then fire the laser. So you just put it on, aim it, fire it, and it will give you a reading just as fast as it was already on. So that's a super cool feature that I found that I really liked. So those are just some of the things that I either wasn't aware of or just kind of, ignorantly skipped over in the beginning of the video, which I apologize, but I'm super grateful to Mike over at Masstech for being so gracious with his time on a Saturday to call me and tell me, all this information. A few other things that he's allowing me to share is one cool feature is the Maztech has a hot shoe, which will allow for other accessories. One of them being an IR illuminator, which will be super cool for shooting under night vision. I have a PVS 27 on the way from See the Night, so we will be doing some long range night shooting, and we'll be using the aiming laser on the Maztech for that, and eventually we will have a prototype of that IR illuminator for the Maztech, which will be super cool. He did say, I did have that little complaint about the cable being a straight cable and getting in the way of some turrets. They have a 90-degree cable connector coming soon, so that will be awesome. That will just keep things out of the way. It'll help you with your cable management, so they are aware of these small little complaints that people have had. But in conclusion, originally my worry was that the 15K wasn't going to be worth the extra $3,000, which is why I bought the 2K to begin with, which I love the 2K. It's a great unit. I think it is fantastic value for your money, and if that's your budget, you will not be disappointed with the 2K at all. I would highly recommend picking one up. But that said, now that I have time on the 15K and seen its capability and how extremely fast and reliable it is, I will absolutely be picking one up next week. So I am super excited to own a 15K. Full disclosure, like I said at the beginning of the video, I bought the 2K. I had not contacted Maztech up until then. I bought it just like everyone else. And then when I started posting about it, they asked if I would like to put the 15K in my video as well. And I said absolutely. So now that I have time on the 15K, I will absolutely be picking one up. And if the 15K is in your budget, if you can spare the $5,300, I would say get it. If it's in stock, snag one. This is going to be one of the best units for a while, comparatively to the other units that are coming out and that are currently available, unless you have, the baller money to go and get a Mars, which I will be comparing the 15K to a Mars, and my crystal ball says that the main difference and the main reason why the Mars is going to be basically twice as much as the Maztech is because of the size. It's basically half the size of the Maztech. Other than that, I see no capability differences. I have some good time behind a Mars already, and now that I have some good time behind a Maztech, I don't know how much of an upgrade for performance and speed and reliability you're going to be getting over, for that extra $5,000. So that said, look forward to that in the coming video. But yeah, guys, so this is the first installment of my weapon-mounted LRF series. I'll be going over the units that are available in detail. Get out of here, bug. I think next on the list, pull this one out, is the Tango Fire 4000. So this was supplied to me by Mile High Shooting, thanks to Eric, my good friend over there. So we will be doing a full in-depth review, testing it the same way as we did the Maztech 2K and 15K, doing a cost-benefit analysis for you guys that are thinking about picking one up. And I'm already a big fan of the 15 or the Fire 4000 as well. It has its advantages and its disadvantages, like price and stuff. I won't get into that right now, but yeah, look forward to the Fire 4000 video coming very soon. After that, I won't be doing an Impact 4000 video. I think that's been done plenty of times. That unit has been out for a while. I'll be doing one on the Wilcox Raptor S. A good friend of mine supplied me with this. This is his personal unit. This is, like we talked about earlier in the video, one of the units that kind of started the movement for compact, accurate, weapon-mounted ballistic laser rangefinders. So we'll be doing a video on that one as well. We also have the SIG Warp coming, so that will probably be closer to the beginning of fall, but that one will be tested as well. So, and I'm going to try and get my hands on any other military unit as well. We'll do one on the Mars. Yeah, if I can get my hands on a Storm, which there's a high possibility, we can play with the Storm. But yeah, thanks guys for watching. Huge thanks to Maztech for supplying the 15K and for Mike for answering all my questions. Thanks to the sponsors, again, Bone Frog for the ammunition, Gallinson's Guns for everything. They're good friends and they've been helping out the channel since the beginning. But yeah, guys, let me know what you thought of the video. I know there's a lot of talking, but this is the kind of video that, you know, the people that want the information are going to stay and they're going to watch it. So those are the guys I'm doing these videos for. And thank you for sticking around through the whole video. But again, thanks. Leave your comments. Let me know if there's any other tests that I could do. I'm very limited on time when I go out because I don't want YouTube to take away from my family time as much, but I still want to provide you guys with high quality videos. So you giving me critiques and suggestions really streamlines my writing and filming process, so I really appreciate your feedback. But thanks guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you on the next one.